Amen.
Amen.
Wow. Thank you, Christina. And thank you for everybody for praying. Prayer makes a massive difference. I'm sat here really appreciating the prayer. Just receiving, really. I'm receiving your prayers and your love. And that's very timely for me because it's actually settling me. And I feel tonight is going to be quite significant. I feel tonight you're receptive. And I feel the Lord's going to actually speak. Not because I'm speaking particularly, but just because it's the topic of love. Christina mentioned all the aspects of love. I mean, that's a big one right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big theme, all the aspects of love. And I think you, Andy, had a quote last week about the various aspects of love in one of your things. And Andrew last week, somehow, I don't know how, as a very imaginative man, he got onto the topic of guns. Right? And we slipped it in somehow, and it's kind of stuck in my memory. Anyway, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, all the aspects of love, you see. So tonight, for me, it's roses. It's Guns and Roses. You know what to say?
No, I had Guns N' Roses in my mind.
There we are.
In tune again.
There we are. We're in tune again.
Wow.
So Guns and Roses. There's a confirmation right over here. So I'm excited.
Wow.
I'm excited. And for those of you that think, Leo's on about Valentine's Day, it's too early. Actually, I was experimenting online. One of Christina's kind of talks inspired me. And she was talking about love being beyond time and space. And I was on this prophetic website. And I took the unusual step of actually communicating with someone randomly on this particular prophetic forum. And I reached out to her. It so happens she's in Australia. And she tuned in tonight. So she woke up. I prayed if it was right. I sent the link. So this is me trying to get savvy with technology. I've got a way to go, but I'm learning. So I sent the link, and I actually prayed. I said, Lord, I've sent her the link. If it's right, you wake her up. And she woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, and there was the link. So she's here, and hi. And of course, it is Valentine's Day there now, so happy Valentine's Day. So there we are. That was smoothly done. So, so really, I'm excited by the topic. Why shouldn't I be? It is why we're here. It's what motivates us. It's what it's all about, isn't it? The many aspects of love. And I kind of want to take it a different way tonight from my own sort of experiences. I want to go back into my past a little bit, but not too much, just to give you a flavour. And actually, I want to start with something Alex posted, and she told me off. She said it was posted a week ago.
Tell you what.
Oh, Alex, play along, please.
Perfectly timed thread.
Perfectly timed from Alex. Yes, fantastic. I read it late, but I read it just in time for tonight. It was just what I needed, and it says it's a passage from a devotional called "I Hear His Whispers," and it says, "As you live in my love, I will show myself through your life and through your words." That's good to know, isn't it? That's great for any speaker. "Many are those around you who need me. Love them and they will see me. The revelation of truth can only come through love." And I want to stop there because when you think about it, we can have all knowledge, can't we? But if we don't have love, we're nothing. We're a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. In other words, my words are meaningless. In other words, they're soon going to be forgotten. In other words, they carry no power. They're just noise. And so that's quite significant. The revelation of truth can only come through love. One of the things I've learned through my journey under this ministry and some of my adventures with a few faces in the room going out and about is really it's love first. If you're evangelising, I can remember Trev stood here one week and he gave a great word about he's been out on the streets and he's doing it regularly. My heart was pounding. I thought I've been wanting to evangelise for years and I just haven't really stepped out for a long, long time. So I texted Trev and I said, "Oh, can I join you?" And that led one thing to another. And since then, I've linked up with Becky and we've been out evangelising. I've linked up with the Lighthouse Church and what they're doing as well. But it's the same principle every time. It's love first. Okay? No amount of knowledge, eloquence, persuasion is going to work if it's not carrying love. And that's something I'm very aware of. So, yeah. And then it goes on to say, I've not given you a spirit of fear, but the spirit of love. As we know, love can't cast out fear. Perfect love casts out fear. So the two don't coexist, to be honest. There may be a tension within us. If we're honest, we have moments of fear. Who doesn't? But ultimately, the two do not coexist. Love must triumph over fear. Because I believe the objective of fear is to triumph over love. Actually, that's what I believe. And sometimes I find myself doing things in the natural. I think, what am I doing? Even tonight, I don't particularly feel zero fear doing this because I've got a screen stuck in front of me. I know it's live and it feels a bit different, and I'm not used to this. But you press on, don't you? You come up against these challenges and you have a choice, fear or love. And where possible, I remind myself it must come through love. My holy presence will spill from your heart as you overflow with my love. Many will attempt to distract you from this treasure. I've experienced this under this ministry quite powerfully, where there's been a lot of disapproval, there's been a lot of opposition, there's been a lot of people abandoning me and leaving me isolated. But I go ahead for the prize. I go ahead for the bigger prize because it either is God or it's not.
Right.
It's either worth it or it isn't. You either give up and turn your back on a big opportunity, or you push through fear and opposition, rejection, abandonment, whatever, misunderstandings, lies, rumours, all the rest of it. You have a choice. And that to me is a big carrot. The carrot is basically, will you follow what your calling is? Will you speak up and be heard? Will you do what you should be doing, evangelism, prophesying, ministering, teaching, whatever? Will you do those things, or will you quit now because it's so much easier? It's so tempting to quit. I've had the temptation myself quite strongly under this ministry. But there's a reason for this opposition. There's a reason we press on. Many will attempt to distract you from this treasure, but your eyes are fixed on me, and I will hold you fast in my love. That's kind of where I kind of want to go. So thank you, Alex, really. It kind of sums up where I want to go tonight quite nicely, because it kind of takes me back to my childhood and some battles I've had in the past. I was tempted to say, I was going to tell you a story about myself before I was saved. But I think I'll rephrase that. It's a story about myself before I knew I was saved. Because we're eternal, and our salvation was booked before the world began. And actually, I didn't know I was saved. I was on that journey. But there was opposition back then. And then Romans 8 is inspiring me as well. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, for my sake we are killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. That's quite a list. Basically, there's zero excuse, actually, because nothing in reality will ever separate us from God. It's easy for me to sit here and say that, but in the battle, in the temptation, in the opposition, in the trials, in the pain, I won't say too much, and I don't want to give details, but a lot of my ministry here has been done with a broken heart. Would you still minister with a broken heart? Would you still love with a broken heart? I know people are nodding here. They know what that's like. And it's painful, but that's what love does. It carries on, it carries on, it carries on, it never quits. I'm not there yet. I'm still learning. It's still a battle, but it's a battle I'm determined to engage in. So reflecting on this, I have a quote here, which is one of my own little inventions earlier, that we are overcome by love to be overcoming with love. We are overcome by love to be overcoming with love. So it's, for me, it's about knowing the love of God so powerfully, so tangibly, that I kind of become unstoppable in a way, because love is unstoppable. That love in me that I experience, that I feed on, in a sense, if I cooperate with it, makes me unstoppable. Because I'm overcome by this love to overcome by love, to be an overcomer. That's the way I feel about it. I'm not sitting here to be comfortable. I'm not sitting here to have a jolly ministry in Paul, which is very nice and lovely. I'm sitting here because I believe the battle's worth winning.
Yeah.
That's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And anything that's worth doing is worth sacrificing for. You know, if you sit in a comfortable home like this tonight, someone has taken the risk to build this, and it's a business risk. Will it sell? Won't it sell? Someone's sweated to put the foundations down and to dig the foundation. Someone else has sweated to put the bricks on. We just come along, we're sitting comfortably. But once upon a time, someone took the risk to build this building. And that's the way I see church. That's the way I see family. That's the way I see the well. I see it that people are laying down their lives not to be comfortable, but to build something that's worth fighting for, that's worth establishing. And it does mean, has meant, that there are trials and there are costs and there are sacrifices, but it has to be worth it. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. Because we can go be comfortable at the pub. Quite frankly, we can have convivial chats and drink and warmth and a nice log fire, but we're not, we're here. And so it must be worth it. So what I want to talk about now is some of the challenges, some of the oppositions. I've already said before I knew I was saved, as opposed to before I was saved, because I didn't know I was saved before I knew Christ at 16. But here's a little story. I used to go along to the local swimming pool. Sometimes with friends, sometimes with brothers. But we were encouraged to go along to the local swimming pool. Now, for me, this was an arena of fear and trepidation. I can conjure up the memories now. I can hear the reverberating screams of boys killing boys by Duncan, and me next in cowering in the shallow end. I can smell the chlorine and taste the chlorine and whatever else was in the water. I don't want to think about it. I can feel the shivers of the cold as I'm cowering in the shallow end, hoping I'm not dunked next. And I knew I would die if I couldn't swim, because all the bigger boys made sure I knew you couldn't swim, so therefore you risked death going into the pool. This was a learning environment I was stuck in. Now, to make matters worse, you think this is bad enough. Bear in mind, and some of you may not know, but I had no one to teach me to swim. I've never had a swimming lesson in my life. So I knew the dunking was imminent and most probable, and drowning was likely. That was my outlook. And this is the east end of London. This is not nice boys playing. They pick on you, and they pick on you bad. You know, if you don't box, you're in trouble. You know, if you don't fight, you're in trouble. So you have to learn somehow. and I had to learn somehow. But what kind of an environment is this to learn to swim? And then to make matters worse, in the deep end, way in the distance, beyond my attainment, beyond my dreams, beyond my aspirations, is a god, and Neptune. The god Neptune. And the title of my talk tonight is Conquering Neptune. Neptune was like a god of the oceans, god of fresh water. And so I looked at this figure in mosaics. He's staring at me with stern eyes. He's got an Adonis body. Well, he would have a swimming pool. And his hair's a mess. He's having a bad hair day. He's having a bad beard day and a bad moustache day. It's like, who is this bad? You know, and he's holding a trident. These things they used to use, the Greeks and the Romans used to use these to spear fish. And I'm thinking, I'm floundering in the shallow end. I'm next. He's going to spear me. And I'll tell you what, I cowered because my imagination was running wild, looking at this thing. It seemed to say, come to the deep end at your peril, and beware if you swim slow. I'm going to spear you. This was like my learning environment, with all the screams and the screeches and the clawing and goodness knows what else was going on, and no one to teach me. And I'm thinking, oh my word, you know, I'm going to die. I hate this place. I'm shivering. I want to go home. So that was the trial I was under. But I had a flash of inspiration. Looking back, I think I know who gave it to me. But there and then, it was my inspiration, and I had it. And my great idea was to, right, well, what can I do about this? I'm cowering in the shallow end. I want to be a swimmer, but there's no way I'll probably die before I can ever do a stroke. No one's going to teach me. So I decided to think a bit laterally, and I was probably about 8 or 9, by the way. I decided if I sat on the bottom of the pool, held my nose like I've seen people do, hold my breath, and do my first head underwater. I put my head underwater, a few bubbles coming up. I saw legs and sort of hazy things happening, and I came back up. And I thought, that's interesting, I'm still alive. So I did it again. I'll do it again. And I sat on the bottom, and I started to look at the brickwork and thinking that looks further away than I thought. And then because it used to be refracted at the top, and now it's like, where is the brickwork? And so I was like, this was all going through my head, like, what's going on here? And I had an idea, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep ducking my head underwater, under my own control. And I'm going to sit on the bottom, and then I'm going to come up. And I'm going to sit down for a bit longer, and I'm going to come up. And so gradually, little by little. And then I said, well, if I can sit on the bottom, I can lie on the bottom. And I changed my body's shape, horizontal, to fish-like. And so I lay on the bottom, and I got back up, spluttering and still holding my breath, and, still alive. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm on the bottom, and I can come up when I want, because I'm in the shallow end, what if I just tried doing one of these funny movements? What would happen? And I discovered I could move like some sort of toad on the bottom of the and I would emerge at the top and gasp for breath like some amphibian. And so I was beginning to think, well, I'm still alive. Was that swimming? I don't know, but something happened. So I went down again, and I thought, well, if I can go down again, what if I aimed for the top? So I did my toad impression and started to aim for the top where the light was shimmering. And lo and behold, I came to the top. And I thought, this is good, but I still can't swim. Or is it swimming? I don't know, I'm not sure. I think swimming is meant to be on the top. So I thought, well, if I can do that, what would happen if I did that on top? And so I did that on top. So gradually, bit by bit, I learned to swim, sort of. And then I said to myself, well, is that swimming? I think it is. I think I just swam near the edge. And then I said, well, if I do corners of the pool, because I couldn't do a width, if I can just do a corner and make the corner a bit bigger, a bit bigger, a bit bigger. And then one day I decided, right, I'm going to do a width. I did some sort of breaststroke or something. I don't know what I did. That was my first width, yes. And I could swim.
You never got dunked.
Oh, I did, plenty of times, yeah.
You were ready for it, right?
But I gradually got more ready for it, yeah, that's right. So, why am I telling you this story? Because sometimes I believe the odds are stacked against you, and it's like you've got to conquer this Neptune, as it were, this kind of Roman god thing, this fearful Goliath that's opposing you. And you might be in circumstances that are too big, seemingly too big. And there are kind of different responses. You can thrash around in fear and anger and spit and splutter and fight, which, by the way, doesn't work in water. The more you do that, the more you go down. Or you can say, no, here I am. I can survive 2 seconds on the bottom. I'll go and sit, and I'll come back up. And just taking the analogy a little bit sideways, if you think of a battlefield where people are being shot and they're laying prostrate, at any given moment in time, there'll be people dead on the battlefield. There'll be some dug in and hiding in a similar position. There'll be some prostrate and surrendering, possibly. But I believe the enemy can't tell the difference between us hiding in Jesus and us being dead and defeated. Because this is what happened to Jesus after he was crucified on the cross. He seemingly, to the enemy, was dead and buried and gone. But something was hidden from the enemy. The part of the story that this is actually a victor, not a victim. Sometimes when you're in circumstances that seem impossible and the opposition's overwhelming, you can just say, well, I'll dig in and hide, or I'll play dead from the enemy, or I'll just dig in, stand in and wait. I'll wait for my rescue. And there's a lot in the Bible, isn't there, about waiting on the Lord, and lots of battles have been won through seeking him and waiting, seeking his face and so on. So, yeah, that's my little story about overcoming, if you like, a big challenge, an impossible challenge, my fear, this arena of fear that was a swimming pool in the East End. But I did learn to swim. And to this day, I like swimming. I'm not a brilliant swimmer. I don't always fancy the cold, but I like swimming when I do it, basically. Fair weather swimmer. So, yeah, that's an overcoming thing, isn't it? But I believe God was with me then. Despite all my circumstances, despite having no parents, despite a split family, despite attempts to leave me for dead, despite Duncans and all sorts, abuse, all sorts. Despite all that, God was with me. And I'm here today with a story that says Neptune, if you like, has been overcome. Yeah, we are overcomers, aren't we? In Christ, all of us. And I can say that of my story. My recent learning environment, if you like, is I'm kind of playing around with learning Italian. I learnt it to some measure about 30 years ago. A friend of ours, she said, well, hey Leo, do you want Italian lessons? I said, fantastic. Italian lessons, 1-to-1, why not? Why wouldn't you? This was 30 odd years ago. And so I learned the basics and enjoyed learning. And it's mostly been left dormant until recently, where she got in contact after about 30 odd years, or maybe 20 odd years, and said actually she's going back to her home island in Italy as a missionary. Claire and I went along to visit her before she left. She's now in Germany before going to Italy. But we went along, and actually she was all ears. She was listening to me big time because she wants to do what Christina's doing in Italy, but she's never met Christina and doesn't know what's happening here in Paul and how it's into church, how it's growing, how it brings life, and the body is done differently, how church is done differently, how family is done differently. She's agog. She's looking at me like, where have you come from? Like, this is like 30 years on. You're telling me all this, and she's getting excited. And then I'm getting a bit excited as well. I'm thinking, well, maybe I could go and help when she sets up. She wants to do the similar sort of thing. She's done it all. She's left, she's sold her house and she's going by faith. She's in Germany at the moment, but she wants to head off to Italy. And then, I don't believe in coincidences. At this time, friends of mine in church offered me Italian lessons 30 years on. I wish we had the technology we have now 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I can look at teaching. I can interact. I can do instant translation. It's just the resources now are amazing. If you ever want to learn a language, just get on and do it. You know, it's just out there. It's just levels and levels. It's fantastic. Anyway, I came across, as it happens, an Italian teacher of English talking to Italians about their learning barriers to learning English. So I'm thinking this is interesting. She's going on in Italian and she's quoting the bit in English, and I'm sort of drawn in. I thought, what are the learning barriers to learning a language? So here we are. Hopefully I can get the list up. Right, and she's written it in her English, so I've just kind of taken it as it is. Here's the first one, learning barriers. You are afraid to be wrong. Who's tried that? You've tried to learn a language. That's the first thing. I'm going to be wrong. Maybe I've sworn at them or whatever, you know, or I said the wrong name or something. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm trying the language, but you're afraid to be wrong. It's true, isn't it? When you're learning something new, that's one of the first fears is, what if I get it wrong? You're afraid not to understand. That's the other thing. I find if once I start speaking in Italian and the Italians talk back to me, they talk very fast and my ear's just about in tune. But sometimes I have to bail out and I have to ask them to repeat it because it's too much. So it's too in-depth. And then you're feeling a bit silly because you started the conversation and now you can't continue it. You are not self-confident. Now, we've recently done a theme about knowing our identity. So we're not big on self-confidence, but we are confident in him, aren't we?
Yeah.
We know who we are in him. So in a way, we are self-confident in a way, but not as the world perhaps sees it. You want to be perfect. There's a barrier. Oh, I better not give the talk tonight, I might not be perfect. I don't know, I better not try that language. I might slip up. My accent might be wrong. I better not step out and worship because I might get the lyrics wrong or whatever. You never feel ready. Oh, I can relate to that with language. Even after 30 years, I still don't feel ready sometimes to have an immediate discussion in Italian. There's still that tension in me that I know bits and pieces that's fragmented. And you're scared to put yourself out there. So like fear of having a go. My journey has overlapped with others here, and I've found myself putting myself out there a bit with people here. Evangelism, doing talks, prophesying, trying to find new ways of hearing God, and it's all a bit risky. It's all a bit, you know, the arena of fear is out there, and the Neptunes at the deep end, you know, what are we going to do about it? You know, so it's small steps. Anyway, she gave some learning tips. Prepare a script, that could be handy, because at the end of the day, we are learning a language. We're learning the language of love. We're learning the Word of God. We're learning to prophesy. We're learning to listen. We're learning to read our Bibles and interpret them. We might be learning ancient Greek and Hebrew. We're learning, there's a lot of language learning going on in our relationship with God. Memorize the word you may need. That's a good one. Then she says, try. Oh, fantastic. This is where we've got to put ourselves out there and just flame or have a go. I'm not an evangelist. Doesn't matter. Get out there and have a go. I don't sing very well. Doesn't matter. Try one tonight. I'm not a dancer. Move your bones. You know, whatever. It's about having a go, isn't it? It's not about being perfect. It's about having a go, joining in, and knowing that love's worth it, knowing that his love is worth it, knowing that he uses our meagre offerings and ill-educated attempts to get things right. And the last one, find a guide. Find a guide. Well, ultimately and supremely, he's our guide. But we also have guides in this room. There are people in this room that could counsel you. There are people in this room that could encourage you to prophesy. There are people in this room, like Trev, that could help you to go out and evangelise. There are people in this room that could help you to dance. There are people in this room that could help you to speak. So, find someone. Find someone to say, can I come alongside you and sit under you or just learn from you? I had an email a message from one of the friends involved with the Italian lessons I'm currently receiving. And he was trying his Italian on me. He's not Italian himself. But he said, he called me ragazzo. Now, that word means boy. And I'm thinking, I'm a grown man. But it doesn't only mean boy. It also means fellow. So you'll see Italians, they say, ciao ragazzi. And you think this is a bit patronising. They don't mean it as patronising. They mean fellow learners. And so, but you have to humble yourself. What's wrong with being a boy or a little girl? Actually, you are when you learn a language, aren't you? I'm watching cartoons in Italian. My inner child is going mad. But actually, I learn more by humbling myself, like back in the swimming pool. By going low, I learn more.
Good.
By going low, I come up. Apparently dead and buried, but I come up, risen, because that's how it is. So if we can go low, we can humble ourselves and say, I'm not very good on the drums, but I'll give it a bash, or whatever. Not very good with art, but I'll try. Does it really matter? Give it a go and see what happens. I don't know why I'm going here, but there we are. And the last thing I want to say is love is an unstoppable force. We carry like a river inside of us. There might be blockages to the river in front of us. There might be a head-on collision, like a dam effect. But sooner or later, that potential energy is going to build and it's going to burst somewhere. Or maybe a pebble or a boulder is in the way and the river will just redirect. There might be things now you're struggling with, you can't break through in. You're not dead and buried. You're not finished. Love is still a river in you. It might be you need to go a different direction. It might be you need to go around the obstacle. It might be you need to wait till the pressure builds and then you come forward like a flood. I know all about waiting. I've spent most of my life under the radar. People don't even know what I can do. I don't even tell them. And it's just the way I've spent my life, is like under the radar. And it just takes something to spark us. And much of that something's happened here, for me personally. And I know others in this room and out there are saying the same. And they're saying something sparked me, or words to that effect. I now see church differently. I now see my relationship with God differently. I now take more risks. I'm growing again. So, yeah, I just want to encourage you with that. So, how to finish, I don't know really, other than it's a big topic. But, yeah, any questions? Go on then.
Just reminded me, my mum grew up in the East End.
Okay, right.
And she
Okay.
went to one of those swimming pools and got held onto the water. And she never got in the water again. And she
wow.
spent her life fighting fear.
Bless her. Bless your... Yeah, she's still around your mum, is she? Bless
She
her.
didn't have a coach. She didn't have somebody who made her go.
It's tough. It's tough in the East End. It is tough.
Ran away from it.
Yeah, it's not a nice environment. But there we are.
Just to encourage people to
Yeah.
get back in the water.
Yeah, metaphorically and literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, I'll end there. Thank you.
I have a little story about just stepping out. Yes, I get afraid sometimes. We were at the gym this morning, and I've seen this lady there almost every day. since we've kind of changed our time. And we always catch eyes and we smile and we greet each other, you know, like a nod. And but I've been feeling something, you know. And today I felt it really strong, and I thought, Lord, what would you like me to do? And all I heard him say was, go tell her you want to be her friend. And I'm like, I'm not 5 years old, God. How am I supposed to do this? I'm American. That's weird. I'm at the gym at 5:30 in the morning. That's weird. Will you be my friend? Even more awkward. So she passed me, and I said to myself, as I'm doing, well, I won't tell you what I'm doing because there's a chiropractor here. So I was working out, and and I thought to myself, well, if she passes by me, I'll give her a word. Well, she passed right by me, but she passed by me quickly, and I watched her, and I was like, oh, I really feel like I'm supposed to do it today, but I can get her tomorrow, and I'm sorry, God, and blah blah. I'm having this conversation in my head. And all I can think about was God's love. And I thought, well, all I really heard was, you know, I feel like I want to be your friend. And so she ended up coming back, and she went and did her abs. And Hannah and I had to go over in the same area to finish up our workout. And I thought, right, well, now's my opportunity. She had her headphones in. She was on the ball doing her little crunches, and I just plopped right down next to her. I mean, how awkward is this? Okay, I'm just painting the picture. She's on one of those, like, you know, those balls, and doing her little crunches. And so I just sat on the floor on my knees, and I said, I know this is really weird, but I feel like I want to be your friend. And she's just looking at me, and she's smiling. And I could feel that she had been, you know, just struggling with some things, because I was feeling her heart as well. And so she actually confirmed that she had been feeling a little bit sad. And needless to say, I made a new friend, and she's going to even come to dance. And I felt that she was a dancer. But, you know, sometimes love just looks like that. Love could be that smile that meets that person. And you don't have to say anything. I'm counseling somebody right now, and she said, oh, I was telling somebody all about you yesterday, and she's like, but maybe I shouldn't tell you because you'll get a big head. I'm like, go on, tell me. I get mudslung at me all the time. I want a big head today. And so she just proceeded to tell me of how much Jesus, you know, she's like, the only way I know how to describe Christina is like Jesus is in the flesh, which I'm totally not, trust me. But what's neat is what she's feeling, what she's receiving is just the simplicity of love. And we forget how powerful love is. And love comes through the form of a smile. Love comes, you know, in consistency. This woman consistently saw me at the gym. We consistently made a point to smile at each other. You know, your eyes are the windows to your soul. You carry the unseen realm inside you. And one of the things this person that I'm coaching, she said, Christina, even now through the computer, when you look at me, I can feel the kingdom looking at me. And I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. Look at me more. I want to look at you and see the kingdom looking at me. Because that's what we carry. It's not me. Only every single one of us have that. And if we would just wake up, wake ourselves up, and push through the fear. I was afraid to go to her, but I was more afraid of not doing it than I was of doing it. And I thought, well, what's the worst that will happen? She thinks I'm weird, and maybe rumors will start at the gym. Oh well, who cares? I didn't care. It was worth the risk, and love takes risks. So I just want to encourage you to even. Here's a little challenge. Pray this week. Come with a testimony next week to share about how God used you to love, even a stranger, you know, or maybe it's somebody you're making eye contact with and you haven't like spoken the words yet. But love compels a movement. It really does.
Reward. With risk comes reward.
Yeah.
It does. But you unveil the unseen realm to individuals. You know, and that's what we're here to do, is to reveal the unseen realm and make His glory seen through ordinary.
Yeah. Yeah, just it's a different perspective, really. But I always appreciate it when Leo speaks. I always find it really. Your stories are really always carry something, So thanks for that. And my mind was back here when I learned to swim in Bournemouth. Actually, and I went straight back there, but it wasn't about swimming. I identified for about the first 20 seconds with you, and after that, it wasn't so bad for me. But I couldn't get the courage to dive in, and I'd get up and I'd go alongside, and I'd stand and I'd look. I just couldn't do it. And my cousin, who's younger than me, he's just a rascal, still lives in the area. He just came by and went like that, and I went head first in. I literally dived in head first by accident, and I got out and thought, I can do this. And after that, I was diving in.
That's the point, yeah.
I never stopped.
Sometimes
And
you
I
need
just
a
think
little push.
sometimes, and I thought, shall I share it? And you said push, and I thought, okay, sometimes love needs a little push. It's like sometimes we need, one another. So if someone here encourages you, it's not because they say, look, come on, would you do this? Don't let fear say no, but actually step out the box, because actually the love of God can overcome through you, and if it overcomes to you, it'll overcome through you to other people. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so sometimes and love pushes sometimes in a right kind of way, because the Holy Spirit is that he's the one who's called, it really is a provoker. So to comfort means to poke and to prod. So it's like, in a battle of, Hastings, wasn't it? What's his name? What's his name? Harold is comforting his troops. He's basically sticking them up the backside or in the back with a sword or a spear. Like, that is comforting. And that's what the Holy Spirit does. So it's like sometimes we need it. I've needed it all my life up until I learned how to respond without it. But I needed those pushes. I still do sometimes. And so let's provoke and encourage one another to love and good deeds. To say, go for it.